Being a university student brings a lot of challenges and projects that need to be accomplished. I hope that through this presentation, I can help business majors to learn a technique that has helped me out. The PSA, or problem solving approach, is an effective tool that can help students when they are working on their projects, both in the personal field and as well as the scholastic and business. What is the PSA? The first step is to plan. This means to define the goal of the project that you're working on. The second step is to research. This would include gathering information. The third step is to draft, which means to design and organize the document. Review is to test and solicit feedback. And the last step is to distribute, which is to transmit documents to the intended audience. I am personally somewhat new to this technique, but I found it to be already helpful in many of my projects this semester, and I intend to use it many times in the future. I needed to create a manual that would be effective in demonstrating how to build something. I immediately started out about the planning phase. I took great care to read the instructions for the project so that I could make sure that I would follow all of them. The instruction manual needed to be covering how to do something basic with things that someone might normally find around their home. I chose to use building blocks and create a manual aimed at young children. The manual was to teach them how to create a fun sculpture. In the research portion of the project, I tried to be thorough in all areas. I personally found this to be my favorite step in the PSA approach. I studied in the textbook on how the manual should look visually. I was able to find what format the manual should take. I was able to research what was effective in manuals. I also decided what my audience would be and researched how I could best communicate with them. I then completed the draft portion of the PSA steps. This meant to actually type up what I had discovered during the research phase. I took a lot of pictures of the steps for my manual and then placed the directions by the pictures. I thought that my first draft went pretty well, but it needed some work. The next step of PSA would be to review. I asked my wife to look at the instructions I had made and asked for suggestions on how to improve. I scheduled an appointment with an online writing tutor through my university. This was completely free and I found it to be very useful. The tutor was able to review the manual and gave a lot of great insight on how I could change the manual for the better. I made the changes that we discussed, such as including more pictures, using more basic vocabulary, and numbering the building block pieces. I applied these changes and found my manual to be much improved. I then utilized the last step of the PSA approach and distributed the manual to my audience. In this particular case, the audience was my professor. However, this manual could be used very easily in real life towards the targeted audience of children. We can see how the PSA approach helped me create a manual that I was proud of. This approach can be useful to anyone that needs to do any type of writing, especially technical. This approach does take a lot of work and effort, but it is highly effective in my opinion. I also believe it will be especially helpful to business majors as they go about their studies and work.